Welcome to the deep dive. This time, we're going deep into the world of cancer research,
Oh, cool.
exploring what allows those cancer cells to grow and spread.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably already know cancer is a big deal, right?
Huge.
But did you know it's not just one disease, it's like a whole bunch of different types and causes.
Exactly. It's incredibly complex. Think of cancer cells as like rebels breaking all the rules of our bodies.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Today we'll be using this framework called the Hallmarks of cancer.
Okay.
And it outlines like the key abilities these rebel cells develop to, thrive.
So it's like a cheat sheet to understanding what makes cancer tick.
Basically, yeah.
So what's the first rule these cells break?
First, they just figure out how to keep growing, even when they shouldn't. Normal cells only grow when they get specific signals,
Right.
but cancer cells, they keep those growth signals switched on all the time.
All the time?
Yeah, it's like having a car stuck with the gas pedal jammed down.
Yikes. That's a scary thought.
Yeah, and to make matters worse, they also ignore the stop growing signals that normal cells obey.
So they're just growing out of control.
Out of control. It's like the brakes are gone in that runaway car.
Double yikes. Okay, so they're growing like crazy.
Right.
But our bodies have ways to deal with damaged cells, right?
Right. So normal cells have a self-destruct mechanism.
Okay,
It's called apoptosis. It's like a built-in safety switch.
makes sense.
But cancer cells, they just disable that switch. They basically become immortal.
Immortal.
Wow.
Wow. So no brakes, no self-destruct button. What other tricks do these rebel cells have?
Well, even without that self-destruct mechanism, normal cells have a limit on how many times they can divide.
Okay.
It's like their biological clock.
Right.
But cancer cells, they rewind that clock. They've achieved replicative immortality.
So they're not just ignoring the rules. They're rewriting them entirely. That's amazing how they can manipulate our biology like that.
It is. And that's not all. These cells are incredibly resourceful. They need a constant supply of nutrients to fuel their growth. So they trick the body into building new blood vessels to feed them. This process is called angiogenesis.
Wow, so they're basically building their own supply lines, like masterminds. But I thought tumors were confined to one spot. How do those cancer cells spread to other parts of the body?
That's where invasion and metastasis come in. Cancer cells develop the ability to break free from the original tumor.
Oh.
And they travel to distant sites and just set up these new colonies.
So they're spreading the rebellion throughout the body. That's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, and what we've covered so far, these are just the original hallmarks of cancer that were identified back in 2000.
2000, so there's more.
Oh, there's definitely more.
Yeah.
Remember, this is a constantly evolving field of research.
Right.
In 2011, 2 new hallmarks were added. And even more recently, researchers have started exploring what they call emerging hallmarks.
Emerging hallmarks. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me, what are these new discoveries?
Well, imagine those rebel cells needing a ton of energy. They actually reprogram their metabolism to become energy hogs. They gobble up fuel just to power their uncontrolled growth.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
They need a lot of energy for all that chaos. What's the other new hallmark?
Okay, this one's a bit unsettling. Our immune system is like a security force, right?
Right.
It should be eliminating these rebel cells,
Yeah.
but sometimes it fails to recognize them.
How is that possible?
That's what's so wild. It's as if our own defenses have been compromised.
But shouldn't our immune system be able to detect those rogue cells?
We would think so. But cancer cells are masters of disguise. They can avoid detection.
Really?
And even more surprisingly, they can manipulate our immune cells.
Oh, no.
They basically bribe them to stay hidden.
Wow. So they're not just strong and resourceful, they're incredibly sneaky. I'm starting to understand why cancer is so hard to fight.
Exactly. It's a multifaceted enemy.
What else have scientists learned about these hallmarks?
Well, these hallmarks don't exist in isolation. There are underlying mechanisms that enable cancer cells to do all this. Things like genome instability and tumor-promoting inflammation.
Okay, break those down for me.
So, genome instability basically means their DNA is unstable.
Unstable.
Yeah, cancer cells are prone to errors in their DNA. And these errors can lead to mutations which make them more dangerous and harder to treat. It's like they're constantly tweaking their code to become unstoppable.
That's a scary thought. What about tumor-promoting inflammation?
Chronic inflammation can create a perfect environment for cancer cells to thrive. It's like a constant state of emergency that they exploit.
So it's not just the cells themselves, but the environment too.
You got it. And the latest research is revealing even more about this interplay between cancer cells and their environment, especially when it comes to something called unlocking phenotypic plasticity.
Unlocking phenotypic plasticity. That sounds intense.
It is. Think about how our cells normally develop.
Okay.
They go through this process called differentiation. They become specialized.
So like a skin cell knows to be a skin cell, right?
Exactly. But cancer cells can sometimes just throw that whole process out the window.
What do you mean?
They can revert back to a less specialized state or even switch to a completely different cell type.
Are you saying they can change their identity?
In a way, yes. It's like a lung cell deciding to become a bone cell. That's the power of phenotypic plasticity.
Whoa. That is some serious cellular shapeshifting.
It might sound strange, but it's a real phenomenon. It's called transdifferentiation. Cancer cells are masters of disguise. They change their identity to evade treatment or colonize new tissues.
So they really are like chameleons.
Exactly. They blend in and adapt.
Incredible. And it doesn't stop there. They've even figured out how to manipulate the system that controls gene expression without even changing the DNA sequence.
Right. It's called non-mutational epigenetic reprogramming.
Try saying that 3 times fast.
It's a mouthful.
So they're finding even more ways to control their behavior and become even more sophisticated.
Precisely. And there's still more to this story. We have 2 more emerging areas of research that are really changing things up.
Okay, I'm ready. What are they?
They both relate to the complex ecosystem within our bodies.
Okay.
One involves polymorphic microbiomes.
Polymorphic microbiomes.
It turns out that the community of bacteria living in our bodies, our microbiome, can actually play a role in both preventing and promoting cancer.
So like our gut bacteria.
The gut microbiome is definitely important, but it goes beyond that. Scientists are finding that microbial communities in other parts of our body, like our skin, lungs, even tumors themselves, can also influence cancer development.
So we're not just talking about our own cells anymore.
Exactly. It's a whole hidden world influencing our health.
That's amazing. Okay, what's the other emerging concept?
It involves something called senescent cells.
What are those?
They're like zombie cells.
Yeah.
They should have been cleared away, but they just linger and release harmful substances.
So they're helping the rebellion.
Pretty much. They contribute to the growth and spread of cancer.
This is a lot to take in. I'm starting to realize just how complex and adaptable cancer really is.
It truly is. And that's precisely why understanding these hallmarks is so crucial.
I see that.
They give us a framework for understanding cancer and for developing new treatments.
It's like a roadmap.
Exactly. And remember, they don't operate in isolation. They're all interconnected, forming this web of capabilities that drives cancer's growth.
It's like a whole network.
A web of capabilities. It's both fascinating and a bit daunting.
So where do we go from here?
Well, we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover about these emerging hallmarks and how they influence cancer development.
This has been an incredible deep dive so far. I can't wait to delve even deeper in part 2. Okay, so ready to keep going with these emerging hallmarks.
Let's do it.
We left off talking about unlocking phenotypic plasticity.
Right.
And how cancer cells can basically like shapeshift and change their identity.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
It is a remarkable phenomenon. It's a huge challenge for treatment.
Yeah, for sure. If these cells are always changing, how can we target them effectively?
It's a moving target. Scientists are making progress, though.
How do they even study something so complex?
One of the key areas is the tumor microenvironment.
What's that?
It's that complex ecosystem that surrounds a tumor. It's not just the cancer cells themselves. The surrounding cells and molecules play a role, too.
So it's like a neighborhood that influences the cell's actions.
Yeah. Think about those pancreatic cancer cells.
The ones that can switch types.
Exactly. Researchers have found that transformation is influenced by signals from the surrounding environment.
So a cell's surroundings can actually influence its identity.
Yeah.
That's wild. What else can trigger those changes?
One major factor is hypoxia. It's a lack of oxygen.
Okay.
Many tumors grow so fast they use up all the oxygen.
We're greedy.
They are. And that lack of oxygen can trigger epigenetic changes.
Epigenetic changes. Remind me what that means again.
It means changes in gene expression without altering the DNA sequence itself.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So these cells are using those harsh conditions to their advantage.
They're survivors.
They really are. It's not just hypoxia, though, right?
Right. There are other things, too, like nutrient deprivation, inflammation, even signals from the extracellular matrix.
Okay, so lots of factors at play. What does all this mean for treating cancer?
One of the most exciting implications is the potential for personalized treatments.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. What does that look like?
Imagine analyzing a tumor and its surroundings, and then designing a treatment that targets the signals driving its growth.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, we're moving toward individualized therapies.
Exactly. It's incredibly complex, though. We're talking about understanding intricate pathways and molecules.
Sounds like cutting-edge science.
It is. It requires collaboration between lots of different researchers.
Okay, so lots of work ahead. But what about those other concepts we talked about earlier? The polymorphic microbiomes and the senescent cells, where do they fit in?
Those are crucial pieces, too. The more we learn about cancer, the more we realize that it's not just about targeting the cancer cells themselves.
It's about the whole system.
Yes, it's about understanding the complex ecosystem they live in.
Okay, let's start with those polymorphic microbiomes. What's the latest on how they influence cancer?
One area of research is focused on how the gut microbiome influences the effectiveness of cancer treatments.
Really?
Particularly immunotherapies.
Immunotherapies are super interesting. I've heard they're a game changer. But I've also heard they don't work for everyone. Could the gut microbiome be why?
That's what researchers are trying to figure out. For example, some studies show that patients with a more diverse gut microbiome tend to respond better to certain immunotherapies.
So a healthy gut could make cancer treatments more effective. Wow.
It's amazing, right?
It is. What can we do to influence the diversity of our gut microbiome?
Diet is huge. A diet rich in fiber and plant-based foods is essential.
So what you eat matters.
Absolutely. And there's growing evidence that lifestyle factors like exercise and stress management also play a role.
So it's a holistic approach.
Exactly.
What about those senescent cells, those zombie cells? Is there anything we can do about them?
Scientists are working on it. They're exploring ways to target senescent cells.
Like how?
One approach is developing drugs called senolytics.
Senolytics.
What are those? They're specialized agents that can eliminate senescent cells. They act like snipers, targeting and eliminating those zombie cells while leaving healthy cells unharmed.
Wow, that's incredible. Like cellular cleanup crews.
Exactly. And the early research is promising. Studies show that they can improve a range of age-related conditions in animals, including cancer.
It's still early, but it sounds hopeful.
It is. There's a lot of excitement about the potential of senolytics.
This is all so exciting. It feels like we're on the verge of a whole new way of thinking about and treating cancer.
I agree. The more we learn, the better equipped we'll be to develop effective therapies.
And who knows what other breakthroughs are coming.
The future is bright.
Well, speaking of breakthroughs, we still have one more emerging hallmark to explore the idea that cancer cells might be influenced by our internal biological clocks. Are we ready to talk about chronobiology? Okay, so we've been exploring the incredible complexity of cancer cells. Learning about their remarkable abilities to grow, spread, and even, evade our immune system.
Right.
But now we're diving into a whole new realm, the world of chronobiology and its potential impact on cancer. It sounds pretty sci-fi to me.
It does sound a bit futuristic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But chronobiology is a real and growing field of study.
Okay.
It explores how time affects living organisms, particularly those internal biological clocks we all have.
Okay, so we all have these internal clocks ticking away inside us.
We do.
What exactly do they do?
These clocks regulate a bunch of different things.
Like what?
Our sleep-wake cycles, hormone release, metabolism, even cell division. They basically keep everything running on schedule.
So it's like an internal timer.
Exactly.
I definitely relate to the sleep-wake cycle part. I'm not a morning person.
Yeah.
But how does this relate to cancer?
That's the big question scientists are exploring.
Okay.
There's growing evidence that disruptions in these internal clocks can actually contribute to cancer.
Wait, so messing with our internal clocks could make us more susceptible to cancer? How does that even work?
Well, think about cell division.
Okay.
If the timing of that process gets disrupted, it can lead to errors in DNA replication. And as we've talked about, those errors can lead to mutations.
Right. So a wonky internal clock could be contributing to that genomic instability we talked about earlier.
Exactly. It's all connected.
That's a bit scary.
It is a concern. But there's more. These internal clocks also influence other things like hormone production, immune function.
Oh, wow.
And even how well certain treatments work.
Wait, are you saying the time of day we receive treatment could impact how well it works? That's crazy.
It might sound crazy, but there's a whole field of research called chronotherapy that's exploring that very idea.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, the idea is that by taking those biological rhythms into account, we can optimize treatments.
So we could potentially make treatments more effective and minimize side effects just by timing them better.
That's the hope. For example, some studies have shown that giving chemo at specific times of day, when cancer cells are most vulnerable, can make it more effective.
So it's like we're syncing up treatments with our body's natural rhythms.
Exactly.
That's incredible. And is this just for chemotherapy?
Nope. Scientists are also exploring chronotherapy for other treatments like radiation and immunotherapy.
Wow, so chronobiology really is opening up a whole new world in cancer research. It's amazing that something as simple as time can have such a big impact.
It really highlights how complex and interconnected our bodies are.
It does. This deep dive has been amazing. I've learned so much. It's been both humbling and inspiring to see how much progress scientists are making.
Yeah, I agree. It's really incredible.
As we wrap up this deep dive, is there a key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember?
I hope they'll remember to appreciate the complexity of life and how much we still have to learn.
I like that. And for our listeners out there, what insights resonated most with you? What new questions are you thinking about?
Yeah, let us know.
Keep those brains buzzing. And until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.